With plenty of rain and cool temperatures in the forecast, I packed up my new camper van and headed out on its first camping trip. Near perfect conditions to try out all the features I've built into the van for camping in the Pacific Northwest. So I drove out to the Creets River in Olympic National Park, one of my favorite rainforest photography destinations, to try out the van and to photograph some forest landscapes and wildlife. I arrived to an empty campground on this wet, late winter Monday evening and quickly set up camp before the rain started. All right, I just arrived here in Olympic National Park in the rainforest, where I'm going to camp out for 4 days and photograph the landscapes and the wildlife in the area, and really just test out the new camper van. Really excited to try out all the different systems. And yeah, I got here and set up camp just before it started raining, so that's great. It's raining right now. It's supposed to rain all day tomorrow, and then have a sunbreak the day after that. So looking forward to some beautiful old-growth forests, and already saw or heard of about 15 elk on the road on the drive-in, so that's a good sign. And let me see if I can track them down. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy dinner. My lasagna just cooked on the way here, and look forward to some good camping. Well, first night in the camper van, slept pretty well, pretty comfortably. It rained all night, and still raining right now. Had to get up twice in the night to drain water that pooled on the awning. The first time I got up, I lowered the far edge of the awning about halfway, and still pooled water. So second time I got up, I lowered it as far as it'll go. And that seems to have done the trick. It's not holding water anymore, but yeah, I had gallons of water on the awning, pooled on the awning last night early on. So it's time to get up and get some breakfast made, and then go out and photograph the rainforest in the rain. I walked the 3-mile Sam's River Loop Trail, one of my favorite for rainforest landscape photography. It is a very wet and muddy trail in the winter, but a good trail for finding open park-like meadows within the rainforest, and I often see Roosevelt elk. The weather ranged everywhere from rain to sun, sometimes both at the same time. One of my favorite pieces of photography gear is a old empty slide frame. I use this to sort of scout shots in the field. It's just a lot more convenient, especially when it's raining, than having to walk around with your camera out. I can just kind of go around framing different scenes until I find something I really like and want to invest time in, and then I'll break out the tripod and get the camera gear out of the bag. So yeah, really handy. Obviously you don't want to limit yourself to the 2x3 slide format aspect ratio, but at least it's a good starting point for finding those good compositions. So there's a shot I framed up. Got the meadow occupying the bottom third of the frame, and then the trees, the upper 2/3, and just cropped out the sky mostly. There's a little bit of a blip of a sky through there because the sky's not that interesting. It's all white and cloudy. Shooting at f/16, focus on the trees in the foreground, ISO 100. It's giving me 3.2 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and also take exposure for the foreground just to make sure I've got full depth of field. I like that shot. I'm running into these spruce trees that have had their lower barks all stripped off. I assume that's probably a bear stripping off the lower barks so they can get to the sap. I see all the sap has run off. You can just imagine a bear just kind of licking this up. So what I'm looking for when I'm walking around, looking for compositions, I'm looking for a couple things. One is a strong foreground background relationship, but also I'm looking for a scene that is simple. There's so many branches and so much chaos in here. You know, it all blends together. All of the foreground trees blend in with the background trees and so on. So I'm looking for something that's simple. Foreground could be as simple as a meadow, or it could be a really interesting tree, or it could be an elk skull, something. That's kind of what I'm looking for as I just walk around. A trail could be a good foreground. This is a pretty faint elk trail right here, but so it requires some kind of openness in the scenery. I mean, just look at all the foreground sticks. These all create scenic confusion in a shot. So I have to look for real simple foregrounds and just wandering around, see what I can discover. This is another one of my favorite meadows. I think what makes these work is these big open meadows of grass separate all the trees, and that provides that simplification I'm looking for. I like this scene, these big leaf maples here in the meadow. I like this foreground maple with the three obvious trunks, and then how the others in the distant background work, all separated by the grassy meadow. Here's the composition on the back of the camera. So I'm shooting this at f11, taking two shots, one focus on the foreground maple and then another shot on the background maples, just to get everything sharp. So this is a little bit of a different scene. This is more of a still life than a landscape. I just kind of like these two fallen logs that go off into the grass, so I've composed it with this stick in the foreground, focusing mostly on the meadow, just a little bit of the trees in the background. Here you can see the composition I framed up on the back of the camera. On day 3, I was hoping to find elk or other wildlife in open parks within the rainforest. On the way to some of my favorite locations, I walked this short section of trail which winds its way through dense forest. I'm always a bit concerned about running into a black bear along this section of trail, and sure enough, here are fresh bear prints on the trail. It may be a bit hard to pick out in the video, but here's a bear track, which is on top of my print from yesterday evening. After casing a few open meadows and running across this little Pacific wren, I made my way down to the river and spotted a male harlequin duck. It's very difficult to see, but he's on this rock in the middle of the river, which provides great overnight protection from predators. I was able to get a couple of shots in the fading light. What beautiful plumage! That evening, I set up my new portable diesel heater. I'm setting it up outside the van and feeding its warm air output into the van through the front window. This keeps all the diesel fumes, exhaust fumes, fan noise, and pump noise outside the van. Then it was time for bed. All right, it's about 7 o'clock the next morning, and with the heater on low, its lowest setting, inside temperature now is 59 degrees, 57% humidity, where outside it's 38 degrees and 84% humidity. So that's pretty comfortable. And look at that, no condensation on any of the windows. So I think overall I'm pretty happy with the van setup. I think the layout's pretty good. I think the one thing I would change is the table. It definitely is too far that way for anybody sitting in this seat here. What I might do is try to relocate the arm from this wall to this wall so that it'll bring it this way a bit, and then also maybe make the table a little bit smaller. I think that might do the trick. I'll try that. I need to kind of work on getting my gear organized within the van a little bit better, but overall I think it's going to be a great and efficient system for supporting my photography adventures. So looking forward to many more trips to come. Thanks for joining me on this first trial run of the new camper van. If you find this helpful, be sure to check out my Delica van conversion playlist.